Chioma stared at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. Negative. Again. The single line mocked her from the small plastic window, sharp and absolute, like a verdict she could never appeal. She sat on the cold bathroom floor, back pressed against the tub, and let the test drop from her fingers. It clattered against the tiles, spinning once before settling face up. Still negative. Still her fault. Always her fault. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Mama Tund had a sixth sense for these things, as if she could smell failure through the phone lines. The text read exactly what Chioma expected. Any news? Chioma typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on the lies she had perfected over 5 years. Not yet, Ma. Still trusting God. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, we need to talk. Those 4 words landed in Chioma's chest like stones. She pulled herself up from the floor, caught her reflection in the mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back. Hollow eyes. Forced smile. A body that everyone had an opinion about but nobody truly saw. She splashed water on her face and tried to remember who she used to be before her worth became measured in missed periods and empty cribs. If this story already sounds familiar, if you've ever carried blame that wasn't yours to carry, hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel because what happens next will break your heart before it heals it. Comment below if you've ever been the scapegoat in your own life. Now, let's continue. It hadn't always been this way. 5 years ago, Chioma married Tund believing she had found safety. He was charming, ambitious, and he looked at her like she was the answer to questions he hadn't yet asked. Their wedding was beautiful. His family welcomed her with open arms and bright smiles. Her own mother cried happy tears and whispered, "You've done well." The first year was bliss. They traveled. They laughed. They stayed up late talking about the future, about the children they would have, about names they both loved. Chioma thought she had married her best friend. But then the questions started. At first, they were gentle. Mama Tund would visit and casually ask, "So, when are we expecting good news?" with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Chioma would laugh it off. "Soon, Ma. We're enjoying each other first." 6 months became a year. The questions became less gentle.
Is everything okay with you? Have you seen the doctor?
You know, in our family, the women are very fertile. Very fertile. Chioma started tracking her cycle obsessively. She bought ovulation kits. She read articles late into the night about conception and timing and positions and diets. She cut out caffeine. She took vitamins. She prayed harder. Tund seemed unbothered at first. "It'll happen when it happens," he'd say, pulling her close. But even his touch started to feel different. Mechanical. Like he was fulfilling an obligation rather than expressing desire. 18 months in, Chioma made her first doctor's appointment. She went alone. Tund had a work meeting he couldn't miss, he said. The doctor was kind, thorough. She ran tests. Blood work. Ultrasounds. Hormone panels. Everything came back normal. "You're perfectly healthy, Mrs. Chioma," the doctor said with an encouraging smile. "Sometimes it just takes time. But I'd recommend your husband come in as well. Fertility is a partnership." Chioma brought home the pamphlets about male fertility testing. She left them on Tund's nightstand. He glanced at them once and pushed them aside. "Let's not make this so clinical," he said. "All this pressure isn't helping. Let's just relax." So Chioma relaxed. Or tried to. But relaxation is impossible when every family gathering becomes an interrogation. When aunties pull you aside to suggest prayer houses and herbal mixtures. When your mother-in-law starts bringing articles about women who conceived after fasting for 40 days. Year 2 turned into year 3. Chioma's younger sister Adiz announced her pregnancy at a family dinner. The room erupted in joy. Hugs.
Tears.
Laughter. Chioma smiled until her face hurt and excused herself to the bathroom where she sat on the toilet lid and cried silently into her hands. She heard them through the door. Poor Chioma. Such a shame. Maybe it's not God's will for her. When she emerged, face washed and smile reapplied, Tun squeezed her hand under the table. She wanted to feel comforted. Instead, she felt patronized. The baby shower was worse. Adiz glowed in her maternity dress, surrounded by gifts and laughter. Chioma helped set up. She organized games. She smiled for pictures. And when no one was looking, she locked herself in the bathroom and let the tears come. She didn't hear the door open behind her. Still nothing for her? 3 years now. Something must be wrong. I heard she's seen doctors. Multiple doctors. Then you know what that means. Chioma's hands gripped the sink. She knew what that meant. In their community, if the doctors found nothing wrong, the problem was spiritual. And spiritual problems were always the woman's fault. She splashed water on her face, fixed her makeup, and returned to the party. Tund was laughing with his cousins, completely at ease. She felt a flash of resentment, so sharp it startled her. That night, in their bedroom, she tried again. Tund, I think we should both get tested.
Properly.
Just to rule everything out. He was scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. We've been through this. No, I've been through this, Chioma said, her voice rising slightly. I've done every test. I've tried everything. I'm just asking you to do one thing. Tund finally looked at her. His expression was cold. So, what are you saying? That I'm the problem? After everything I've defended you from, now you want to turn this on me? Chioma felt her resolve crumble. No, that's not what I'm saying. I just thought. You just thought you'd make me feel like less of a man? Tund stood up. Do you know what I hear at work? What my own family says about me behind my back. That I can't even get my wife pregnant. And now you want to drag me to doctors to confirm it. Tund, please. I'm done talking about this tonight. He grabbed his pillow. I'll sleep in the guest room. The door closed behind him. Chioma sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. She had apologized. Again. For wanting answers. For asking questions. For existing in a marriage that was slowly suffocating her. She didn't know it yet, but she had been carrying his shame as her own for 3 years. And it would get worse before it got better. Year 4 arrived with a heaviness that settled into Chioma's bones. The pressure was no longer subtle. It was suffocating. Mama Tun's visits increased. She'd arrive unannounced, walking through the house like an inspector searching for evidence of failure. She'd check the kitchen for signs of proper nutrition. She'd comment on Chioma's weight, her skin, her stress levels. Stress kills the womb, she'd say ominously. You need to be more peaceful. Chioma wanted to scream. How could she be peaceful when every month brought fresh disappointment? When every pregnancy announcement from friends felt like a personal attack? When her own body had become enemy territory? Church became another battlefield. The women's group prayed over her publicly, laying hands on her stomach while the congregation watched. We break every curse of barrenness, they'd shout. We command her womb to open. Chioma stood there, eyes closed, feeling completely exposed. After service, women would approach with advice. Have you tried standing on your head after? My cousin drank bitter leaf tea for 6 months. You need deliverance. There are spirits blocking your womb. Tund never defended her in these moments. He'd stand to the side, nodding politely, accepting their prayers with a humble smile. At home, he barely touched her anymore. Intimacy had become a chore, scheduled around her cycle, devoid of connection. One night, Chioma lay awake while Tund slept beside her. She stared at the ceiling and wondered when she had become so small. When had she started apologizing for taking up space? When had her entire identity shrunk down to this one thing she couldn't control? Her phone lit up with a message from her best friend Kem. How are you really doing? Chioma's fingers hovered over the keyboard. How was she really doing? She was dying inside. She was drowning. She was disappearing. She typed, I'm fine. And Kem called immediately. Chioma let it ring. The next morning, Mama Tund showed up with another woman. Younger. Plump. Smiling nervously. This is Sister Blessing, Mama Tund announced. She's had 3 children.
3.
And she's agreed to pray with you. to mentor you in fruitfulness. Chioma stared at this stranger in her living room, this woman brought in as a living example of what Chioma could not be. That's very kind, she managed. But I don't think. Pride is a sin, Chioma, Mama Tund interrupted. You need help. Sister Blessing is help. For 2 hours, Sister Blessing sat in Chioma's home, describing her pregnancies in excruciating detail. The cravings, the symptoms, the joy of feeling life move inside her. Mama Tund watched Chioma's face the entire time, as if waiting for the lesson to sink in. When they finally left, Chioma walked into her bedroom, locked the door, and screamed into her pillow until her throat was raw. Tund came home to find her red-eyed and shaking. What happened? She told him. Everything. The humiliation. The parade of fertile women. The constant invasion of their privacy. He sighed. She means well. She means well? Chioma's voice cracked. She brought a stranger into our home to shame me. Don't be dramatic, Tund said, loosening his tie. She's trying to help. By making me feel broken? Tund turned to face her fully now. Maybe if you stopped being so sensitive about everything, this wouldn't be so hard. The words hit her like a slap. She had carried his burdens, absorbed his family's cruelty, sacrificed her dignity over and over, and he called her sensitive. Get out, she whispered.
What?
Get out of this room.
Now.
Tund stared at her for a long moment, then left without another word. Chioma sat in the silence, and for the first time in 4 years, she let herself feel the rage she had been swallowing. The rage didn't leave. It settled into Chioma's chest like hot coal, burning quietly beneath forced smiles and polite conversations. She moved through the next weeks like a ghost in her own life, performing the role of dutiful wife, while something inside her hardened. Nkem showed up one Saturday morning, unannounced, with takeout and determination written across her face. She took one look at Chioma and pulled her into a hug so tight that the dam finally broke. I can't do this anymore, Chioma sobbed into her friend's shoulder. I can't keep pretending I'm okay. Nkem held her until the crying stopped, then pulled back and looked her dead in the eye. Then stop pretending. They sat at the kitchen table, containers of jollof rice going cold between them, while Chioma unloaded everything. The tests. The accusations. The shame. The way Tund shut down every conversation about his own fertility. The way he let his family destroy her while he stood by silent. He won't get tested, Chioma said flatly. For years, Nkem. For years, and he refuses. Nkem's jaw tightened. You know what that means, right? It means he's scared.
No.
Nkem leaned forward. It means he already knows. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and terrible. Chioma shook her head. He wouldn't. He couldn't know and let me go through all this. Couldn't he? Nkem asked softly. Think about it. Chi, what's easier? Admitting he's the problem or letting everyone blame you? Chioma's hands started shaking. Because somewhere deep down, beneath all the excuses she'd made for him, she had suspected this. She had felt it in his deflections, in his anger whenever she brought up testing, in the way he'd rather watch her suffer than face the truth. I need to know for sure, Chioma whispered. Nkem nodded. Then we'll find out. That afternoon, Chioma made another appointment with her doctor. This time, she went with a different kind of desperation. Not the desperation to fix herself, but the desperation for truth. The doctor welcomed her back with professional kindness. How can I help you today, Mrs. Chioma? I need to know if the problem is me, Chioma said. Run every test. Everything. I need to be absolutely certain. The doctor studied her carefully. We've already run comprehensive tests on you. Your results were normal. Then run them again, Chioma insisted, her voice breaking. Please. I need to know for sure because my husband refuses to be tested and I'm losing my mind. The doctor's expression shifted to something like sympathy. She reached across the desk and touched Chioma's hand gently. Mrs. Chioma, in my 20 years of practice, I've seen this pattern many times. When one partner refuses testing, it's rarely because they think they're fine. What are you saying? I'm saying that male factor infertility accounts for 40% of all cases. Sometimes more. The doctor pulled out a chart. Low sperm count, motility issues, hormonal imbalances. These are common. Treatable. But first, the man has to be willing to face the possibility. Chioma felt something crack open inside her chest. He's been letting me believe it's me. I don't know what your husband believes, the doctor said carefully. But I know that you're not the problem. Your body is functioning exactly as it should. Chioma left that office with paperwork she'd already seen, results she already knew, and a truth she could no longer ignore. She sat her car in the parking lot and called Nkem. He knows, she said when her friend answered. I don't have proof, but I know he knows. Then it's time to stop protecting him, Nkem said firmly. Come stay with us for a few days. Clear your head. I can't just leave. Why not? What's he done to deserve your loyalty? Chioma didn't have an answer for that. That evening, she came home to find Tund in the living room with his mother and two of his uncles. Her stomach dropped. This was an ambush. Sit down, Chioma, Mama Tund said. It wasn't a request. Chioma remained standing. What's going on? Tund wouldn't meet her eyes. His uncle, a stern man who'd always intimidated her, spoke first. We've been discussing your situation. 5 years is long enough. My situation? Chioma repeated. The childlessness, Mama Tund said bluntly. We've decided on a solution. Chioma's heart hammered against her ribs. What solution? Mama Tund smiled, and it was the most terrifying smile Chioma had ever seen. We've found a second wife for Tund. A young woman from our village. Good family. Proven fertility. She's already had a child. The room tilted. Chioma grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. Excuse me? You'll remain the first wife, of course, the uncle continued as if he were discussing a business transaction. But we need heirs. The family name must continue. Chioma looked at Tund, her husband, the man who'd promised to love and protect her. He was staring at the floor like a coward. Tund, she said, her voice shaking. Tell them no. He said nothing. Tund. Her voice rose. Tell them this is insane. He finally looked up, and what she saw in his eyes made her blood run cold. Resignation. He'd already accepted this. It's not what I want, he said quietly. But maybe it's what we need. Something inside Chioma shattered completely. She laughed, high and bitter. What we need? We need you to take one simple test, Tund. One test. But instead, you'd rather marry another woman than face the possibility that you're the problem. Mama Tund stood up sharply. How dare you speak to him that way? After he's been patient with you for 5 years? Patient. Chioma's voice was rising now, all the rage she'd swallowed finally erupting. He's been patient? I've done everything. Every test, every treatment, every humiliation, and he's been patient. Lower your voice, the uncle commanded. No. Chioma turned to Tund. I'm asking you one more time. Get tested. Just once. If the problem is me, I'll accept it. I'll walk away. But if it's not me, Tund said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then prove it, Chioma challenged. Take the test and prove it. I don't need to prove anything. Tund exploded, finally showing emotion. This is ridiculous. You're trying to make me look like a failure in front of my family. You're doing that yourself, Chioma shot back. Mama Tund moved toward her. Get out of this house. Now. Before you destroy what little respect you have left. Chioma looked around the room at these people who'd never truly accepted her, who'd spent 5 years treating her like defective merchandise. Then she looked at her husband, who still couldn't meet her eyes. I'll leave, she said quietly. But not because you told me to. Because I finally see clearly. She walked to their bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started throwing clothes inside. Tund appeared in the doorway. Don't do this, he said. Don't make this worse. Chioma spun around. Make this worse? Tund, your mother just told me you're taking a second wife, and you said nothing. Nothing. What exactly could I do to make this worse? She's just trying to help, he said weakly. By replacing me? That's help. You're being dramatic. Chioma zipped the suitcase closed with shaking hands. I've been called barren, cursed, broken, and defective for 5 years. I've been prayed over, pitted, and paraded in front of fertile women like a cautionary tale. I've done everything except the one thing that might actually give us answers. And when I ask you to do that one thing, you call me dramatic. She pulled a suitcase off the bed. I'm leaving. I don't know for how long, but I can't stay here and watch you destroy me to save yourself. If you walk out that door, Tun said, and his voice had turned cold, don't expect me to beg you to come back. Chioma looked at him for a long moment. This man she'd loved. This man she'd defended. This man who'd let her burn to keep himself warm. Good, she said. Because I'm done begging too. She walked past him, past his family still sitting in the living room like judges at a trial, and out the front door. She loaded her suitcase into her car with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She sat in the driver's seat and gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. Then she drove to Nkem's house and didn't look back. Nkem opened the door, took one look at Chioma's face, and pulled her inside without questions. Her husband David was in the living room and immediately stood up. I'll make up the guest room, he said quietly, giving them privacy. Chioma collapsed onto Nkem's couch. They want him to take a second wife. What? Nkem's voice was sharp with rage. Chioma told her everything. The ambush. The village girl. Tun's silence. His final threat. He's a coward, Nkem said flatly. He's always been a coward. But now you see it. I defended him, Chioma whispered. For 5 years I made excuses. I told myself he was under pressure too. That he loved me. That we'd get through this together. And what was he doing while you defended him? Chioma closed her eyes, letting me take the blame. Her phone started ringing. Tund. She declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Then came the text. Come home. Let's talk about this. You're overreacting. My family is upset. You embarrassed us. Chioma turned off her phone and handed it to Nkem. Keep this. I can't look at it right now. That night, lying in Nkem's guest room, Chioma stared at the ceiling and felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Not peace. Not happiness. But clarity. Sharp, painful, undeniable clarity. Her marriage was built on a lie, and she had been the only one telling the truth. The next morning, David knocked softly on the guest room door. Chioma opened it to find him looking uncomfortable but determined. I hope I'm not overstepping, he said carefully. But Nkem told me about the testing issue. Chioma felt her face flush with embarrassment. I'm sorry you got dragged into our mess. Don't apologize, David said quickly. Listen, I'm a doctor. I work with a private clinic that handles these situations discreetly. If you could get a sample from Tund, even an old one, we could run tests without him knowing. Chioma's stomach turned. That feels wrong. So does letting him destroy you to hide his own shame, David said bluntly. Look, I'm not trying to encourage deception, but you deserve to know the truth. And if he won't give it to you willingly, maybe you need to find it yourself. Chioma thought about the toothbrush in their shared bathroom, the razor, the comb, things that might hold DNA, things that might hold answers. Let me think about it, she said. David nodded and left her alone with the most dangerous thought she'd had in 5 years. What if she stopped waiting for permission to know the truth? 3 days passed in Nkem's guest room. 3 days of silence broken only by the sound of Chioma's phone vibrating relentlessly in Nkem's drawer. Tund called 17 times the first day. His mother called 9 times. By the 3rd day, the calls had slowed, replaced by texts that swung wildly between apology and accusation. I miss you. Please come home. You're being selfish. Think about our marriage. My mother is sick with worry. This is your fault. Chioma read them with Nkem looking over her shoulder, and each message confirmed what she already knew. Even now, even in his attempts to bring her back, Tund was making himself the victim. On the 4th morning, Chioma made a decision that would have terrified her a month ago. She called Tund. He answered on the first ring. Thank God. Chioma, please come home. We can work this out. I need to get some things from the house, she said calmly. Will you be at work this afternoon? There was a pause. You're coming home? I'm coming to get my things. Will you be there or not? Another pause, longer this time. I have meetings until 5. Good. I'll be gone before then. She hung up before he could respond. Nkem watched her with a mixture of pride and concern. Are you sure about this? Nkem asked quietly. Chioma thought about David's words, about the toothbrush, about 5 years of carrying shame that might not be hers. I need to know, she said, even if I have to find out this way. Nkem drove her to the house at 2 in the afternoon. The home Chioma had decorated, cleaned, and filled with hope now felt like a museum of broken dreams. Everything looked the same, but it all felt different. Smaller. Suffocating. She moved through the rooms with purpose, packing clothes and documents. Her certificates. Her passport. Things that belonged only to her. In the bathroom, she paused at the sink where Tun's toothbrush sat in its holder next to the razor he used every morning. Her hands shook as she pulled out the plastic bag David had given her. Just the toothbrush, he'd said. That's all we need. She picked it up, and the weight of what she was doing hit her fully. This was a violation of trust. But then again, what trust was left to violate? What marriage was left to protect? She sealed the toothbrush in the bag and tucked it into her purse. By 4:30, she was back in her car, pulling away from the house with 2 suitcases of belongings and 1 small bag that might contain the truth. She met David at his clinic an hour later. He took the sample, without judgment. Give me 3 days, he said. I'll run a full analysis. Those 3 days were the longest of Chioma's life. She moved between hope and guilt, between rage and regret. What if the test came back showing Tund was fine? What if she really was the problem, and she'd just violated his privacy for nothing? But then she'd remember his refusal to test. His anger whenever she asked. His willingness to take a second wife rather than face the possibility of his own infertility. And the guilt would fade, replaced by something harder. On the 3rd day, David called. Can you come to the clinic? His voice was too neutral, too careful. Chioma knew before she arrived what the results would say. David met her in his office with a manila folder. He didn't make her wait. Severe oligospermia, he said gently. Extremely low sperm count. Less than 5 million per milliliter when normal is 15 million or higher. The room seemed to tilt. Chioma gripped the edge of the desk. David continued, his voice professional but kind. Natural conception with these numbers is nearly impossible. It would require medical intervention. IVF, possibly with ICSI. But it's treatable. Many men father children with worse counts than this. How long? Chioma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How long has he had this? There's no way to know for certain without his medical history. But these conditions don't develop overnight. If I had to guess, this has likely been the case for years. Chioma closed her eyes. 5 years. 5 years of blame. 5 years of shame. 5 years of her body being examined and questioned and prayed over while he sat silent, knowing. He knew, she said out loud. He had to have known. David hesitated. I can't say that for certain. But you suspect it. David looked at her with sympathy. Men sometimes go to doctors for other reasons. Routine checkups. Sports physicals. And sometimes information comes back that they're not ready to face. Chioma took the folder with shaking hands. Inside was scientific proof of what she'd suspected. Not that she was broken, but that she'd been breaking herself for someone else's lie. Thank you, she managed. What will you do now? David asked. Chioma looked down at the test results, at the numbers that had stolen 5 years of her life. I'm going to stop protecting him. That evening, Chioma made calls. First to her own mother, who answered with the cold distance that had defined their relationship for the past 3 years. Chioma, have you come to your senses? Mama, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. Chioma's voice was steady now, fortified by truth. I'm not the reason there are no children. Her mother sighed. Not this again. I have test results, Mama. Medical proof. Tund is infertile. Severely infertile. And I think he's known for years. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, quietly, what are you saying? I'm saying I've been blamed for something that was never my fault. I'm saying you all chose his comfort over my dignity. And I'm saying I'm done carrying his shame. Her mother's voice cracked. Chioma, do you know what you're accusing him of? I'm not accusing him of anything he hasn't done, Chioma replied. And I need to know, Mama. Will you stand with me this time? Or will you choose his family over your own daughter again? The silence stretched long and painful. I need time to process this, her mother finally said. You've had 5 years, Chioma said, and ended the call. Next, she called Tund. He answered immediately, hope clear in his voice. Chioma, I'm so glad you called. Can we meet? Can we talk? Yes, she said calmly. We need to talk. Tomorrow. At your mother's house. My mother's house? Why there? Because your whole family needs to hear what I have to say. 2 o'clock tomorrow. Make sure everyone is there. Your mother, your father, your uncles. Everyone who had an opinion about my womb. Chioma, what is this about? Truth, she said. Something you should have given me 5 years ago. She hung up before he could respond. Nkem found her sitting in the dark living room an hour later, the test results spread on the coffee table in front of her. Are you really going to do this? Nkem asked, sitting beside her. They destroyed me publicly, Chioma said quietly. They deserve the truth publicly. They'll attack you. You know they will. Let them. Chioma's voice was hard now, forged in 5 years of fire. I'm not the one who should be ashamed. If you're still watching, if your heart is racing right now because you know where this is going, hit that subscribe button. Comment below and tell me what you would do with these test results. Would you expose the truth or walk away quietly? Let me know because the story is about to reach its breaking point. The next day, Chioma dressed carefully. Not in armor, but in dignity. A simple dress. Minimal makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw someone different than the woman who'd left this house 2 weeks ago. That woman had been crumbling. This woman was forged steel, and Nkem offered to come with her. You don't have to face them alone. Yes, I do, Chioma said. This is my fight. She arrived at Mama Tund's house at exactly 2 o'clock. Cars lined the street. Tund had clearly told everyone. Good. She wanted witnesses. She walked through the front door without knocking. The living room fell silent. Tund's entire family was there. His parents, his uncles and aunts, his cousins. And sitting in the corner, looking smug and territorial, was a young woman Chioma had never met. The second wife candidate. Tund stood up quickly. Chioma, thank you for coming. Maybe we should talk privately first. No, Chioma said clearly. We'll talk here. In front of everyone. Mama Tund rose from her chair like a queen addressing a peasant. You've caused enough drama, Chioma. If you've come to apologize. I'm not here to apologize, Chioma interrupted. She pulled the manila folder from her bag and held it up. I'm here to tell the truth. Tund's face went pale. Chioma, don't. Don't what? She turned to him. Don't tell them what you've known all along? I don't know what you're talking about, Tund said, but his voice shook. Chioma opened the folder and pulled out the test results. These are fertility test results. Would you like to know what they say? The room was dead silent now. Every eye fixed on the papers in her hands. They say that the person tested has severe oligospermia. Extremely low sperm count. That natural conception is nearly impossible without medical intervention. She looked directly at Tund. They're your results. The room erupted. That's a lie. Mama Tund shrieked. Where did you get those? An uncle demanded. She faked them, someone else shouted. But Chioma kept her eyes on Tund, whose face had drained of all color. Tell them, she said quietly. Tell them I'm lying. Tund opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the floor. Mama Tund snatched the papers from Chioma's hands. Her eyes scanned the page, once, twice. Her face transformed from rage to shock to something Chioma had never seen before, uncertainty. Tund, his mother said slowly. What is this? I don't know, Tund stammered. She could have made those up. She's desperate. Made them up? Chioma's voice rose. These are from David's clinic. Licensed. Official. You want to call them and verify? I have the number right here. An uncle stepped forward. How did you get a test if he didn't agree to it? Because he's refused to be tested for 5 years, Chioma said, her voice ringing through the room. 5 years of watching me be blamed, shamed, and humiliated while he sat silent. So, yes, I got the test without his permission. And, you know what I found? That I've been carrying his shame this entire time. Mama Tund turned to her son. Is this true? Did you know? No, Tund shouted, but his eyes were wild, trapped. Then take another test, Chioma challenged.
Right now. Today.
Prove I'm wrong. I don't need to prove anything to you, Tund shot back. Then prove it to them. Chioma gestured to his family. Prove it to your mother, who wants you to take a second wife. Prove it to the uncles who've been pressuring you for heirs. If I'm lying, if these results are fake, one test will clear your name. Tund's jaw clenched. He looked around the room at his family's expectant faces, at his mother's dawning horror, at the young woman in the corner who was starting to look uncomfortable. I'll take the test, he said finally. But not today. Not like this. Why not? His father spoke for the first time, his voice heavy with disappointment. If you have nothing to hide, why not? Tund's face crumbled under his father's gaze. The older man had always been quiet, letting his wife lead the family drama, but when he spoke, everyone listened. And now he was looking at his son like he was seeing him clearly for the first time. Answer me, Tund, his father said again. Why not take the test today? Because this is insane. Tund exploded. You're going to believe her over me? Your own son? I'm not asking you to defend yourself, his father replied calmly. I'm asking you to prove her wrong. If you can. The silence that followed was suffocating. Chioma watched her husband's face cycle through emotions. Rage, fear, desperation. She'd seen these looks before in smaller moments when she'd pushed too hard for answers. But now there was nowhere for him to hide. Mama Tund was still holding the test results, her hands trembling. Tund, she said, and her voice had lost all its earlier sharpness. Tell me the truth. Did you know? Ma, she's trying to destroy me, Tund said, his voice breaking. Can't you see that? What I see, his mother said slowly, is that you won't answer a simple question. An aunt stood up, pointing at Chioma. Even if this is true, what she did was wrong. Testing him without permission? That's a violation. You want to talk about violations? Chioma's voice cut through the room like a blade. Let's talk about 5 years of violations. Let's talk about being called barren in public. About strangers praying over my body. About being paraded in front of fertile women like a broken thing that needed fixing. She turned to face the whole room now. Let's talk about your son letting all of that happen. Watching it happen. Encouraging it. While he knew the entire time that I wasn't the problem. You don't know that I knew, Tund shouted. Chioma pulled out her phone and opened a folder she'd been dreading to revisit. 2 years ago, you had a health scare. You went to the hospital for chest pains. Remember? Tund's face went white. I found the discharge papers last week when I was packing. I wasn't looking for them. But there they were, stuffed in the back of your filing cabinet. She swiped through her phone and held up a photo she'd taken of the document. Routine blood work was done. And there, in the notes section, the doctor wrote, patient informed of low testosterone levels and advised to follow up with fertility specialist if planning conception. The room went completely still. That was 2 years ago, Tund, Chioma said, her voice shaking now. 2 years ago, a doctor told you to see a fertility specialist. And what did you do? Nothing. You did nothing while I kept taking tests, kept trying treatments, kept believing I was the reason we had no children. Mama Tund dropped into her chair, the test results falling from her hands. Tund, tell me she's lying. Tund was breathing hard, his eyes wild. It wasn't definitive. The doctor said it might affect fertility. Might. Not that it definitely would. And you didn't think to mention it? His father asked, his voice dangerously quiet. You didn't think your wife deserved to know? I didn't want to worry anyone, Tund said desperately. I thought it would resolve itself. Resolve itself? Chioma laughed bitterly. For 2 years? You thought it would magically resolve itself, while I underwent invasive procedures? While your family called me cursed? The young woman in the corner, the second wife candidate, stood up quietly. I should go. Sit down, Blessing, Mama Tund said sharply. But her voice had lost its authority. She looked at her son with something Chioma had never seen before, shame. Tund, what have you done? I was protecting this family, Tund shouted. Do you know what would have happened if everyone knew? The gossip? The shame? People would have said, I'm not a real man. So, you let them say your wife wasn't a real woman instead? His father asked. Tund had no answer for that. One of his uncles stood up, shaking his head. This is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Another uncle agreed. To let this woman suffer for your pride? Tund, I taught you better than this. Mama Tund was crying now, something Chioma had never witnessed. All this time, she whispered. All the things I said to her. The things I did. She looked up at Chioma, with eyes full of tears. What have I done to you? Chioma felt no satisfaction in this moment. No vindication. Just exhaustion. You believed him, she said simply. You all did. Because it was easier to blame me than to question him. I'm sorry, Mama Tund said, and the words sounded foreign in her mouth. Chioma, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 5 years, Chioma replied. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. Tund suddenly lunged forward, grabbing Chioma's arm. Please. Please don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to doctors together. We can try treatments. I'll do anything. Chioma looked down at his hand on her arm, then up at his face. This man she'd loved. This man she defended. This man who'd chosen his ego over her dignity again and again. Let go of me, she said quietly. Chioma, please. I love you. You love yourself, she corrected. You always have. You just needed me to love you more than I loved myself. And I did. For 5 years, I did. She pulled her arm free. But I'm done now. Tund's father stood up. Tund, let her go. No. Tund turned to his father desperately. You can't let her leave. She's my wife. You stopped treating her like a wife the moment you chose your pride over her peace, his father said heavily. He looked at Chioma. You have our family's apology. Not that it means much now. But you have it. Mama Tund stood up, wiping her eyes. She walked over to Chioma, moving slowly, like she was approaching something fragile. I was cruel to you, she said. Unspeakably cruel. I wanted grandchildren so badly that I didn't care who I hurt to get them. She took a shaky breath. If you never forgive me, I'll understand. But please know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Chioma looked at this woman who'd made her life hell for 5 years. Part of her wanted to scream, to rage, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she'd caused. But another part, the part that was tired of carrying hate, just felt sad. I don't forgive you, Chioma said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I don't hate you either. I just need you all to leave me alone now. She picked up her purse and walked toward the door. Tund moved to follow her, but his father grabbed his shoulder firmly. Let her go, he said again. Chioma walked out of that house into the afternoon sunlight. She got into her car, drove exactly 2 blocks, and then pulled over because her hands were shaking too hard to drive safely. She sat there, gripping the steering wheel, and let the tears come. Not sad tears. Not angry tears. Release tears. The kind that come when you finally put down something heavy you've been carrying too long. Her phone rang. Nkem. She answered. How did it go? Her friend asked. It's over, Chioma said. It's finally over. She stayed with Nkem for another week while she figured out her next steps. Her mother called on the 3rd day, and this time, her voice was different. I failed you, she said without preamble. Your father and I, we failed you completely. Chioma closed her eyes.
Yes.
You did. I was so worried about what people would think, her mother continued. About our family's reputation. I forgot that you were my family. My daughter. And I'm sorry, Chioma. I'm so sorry. I needed you, Chioma said, her voice breaking. For 5 years, I needed my mother, and you weren't there. I know. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Her mother was crying now. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be there now. I'd like to try to make this right. Chioma thought about forgiveness, about family, about the long road ahead. I need time, Mama. But maybe we can start there. With time. I'll wait, her mother said. As long as you need. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Chioma hired a lawyer. The divorce papers were filed quietly, efficiently. Tun tried to contest them at first, but his father convinced him to sign. You've done enough damage, his father told him. Let her go with some dignity. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. During that time, Chioma threw herself into rebuilding. She started a blog about infertility stigma, about the burden women carry, about the silence that kills marriages. It went viral within a month. Women flooded her inbox with stories that mirrored her own. Women who'd been blamed. Women who'd been tested repeatedly while their husbands refused. Women who'd lost themselves trying to fix problems that were never theirs to fix.
She started a support group.
First online, then in person. Every week, women gathered to share their stories, to cry, to rage, to heal. Chioma facilitated these sessions with a gentleness born from her own pain. Her business took off too. She'd always been good with numbers, with organization. She started a consulting firm helping women navigate financial independence. She hired 3 employees within the first year. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something entirely her own. 18 months after the divorce was finalized, Chioma ran into Tund at a mutual friend's wedding. She saw him across the room and felt nothing. No anger. No longing. Just the mild recognition you'd give any stranger from your past. He approached her during the cocktail hour, looking nervous. Chioma, you look well. I am well, she said simply. I heard about your business. Congratulations. Thank you. An awkward silence stretched between them. Then Tun said quietly, I'm in therapy now. Working through things. That's good, Chioma said, and she meant it. I hope it helps you. I want you to know, he continued, his voice low, I understand now what I did to you. How I destroyed you to protect myself. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Chioma looked at him, this man who'd once held her whole world in his hands. I believe you, she said. But Tund, sorry doesn't heal me. Time does. Distance does. Choosing myself does. I know, he said. I just needed you to know that I finally see it. All of it. She nodded. Then we've both grown. He smiled sadly. You were always the strong one. No, Chioma corrected gently. I was just the one who had no choice but to be strong. She excused herself after that, rejoining her friends at another table. Kem gave her a questioning look, and Chioma smiled. I'm fine. Actually fine. And she was. 2 years after walking out of Mama Tun's house, Chioma stood in front of a mirror in her own apartment. The space was small but entirely hers, decorated the way she wanted, filled with things that made her happy. No compromises. No apologies. She studied her reflection and barely recognized the woman from 5 years ago. That woman had been dying inside. This woman was alive. Fully, completely alive. Her phone buzzed with a message from someone she'd been seeing for a few months. Marcus. A kind man who'd answer her questions about fertility testing on their 3rd date without defensiveness or drama. Still on for dinner tonight, the text read. She smiled and typed back. Absolutely. She wasn't rushing this. She wasn't looking for someone to complete her. She was whole now, all on her own. But it was nice to share space with someone who respected that wholeness. If you've stayed with this story until the end, if Chioma's journey touched something in you, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about women who chose themselves. And comment below, tell me what this story taught you about love, about blame, about the courage it takes to walk away from familiar pain. That evening, as Chioma got ready for dinner, she caught her reflection one more time. She thought about the girl who'd sat on that bathroom floor, staring at a negative pregnancy test, believing she was broken. She whispered to that girl across time, "You were never broken. You were just carrying someone else's shame. And when you finally put it down, you learned to fly." The greatest love story isn't always about who you end up with. Sometimes it's about who you become when you finally stop abandoning yourself. Chioma had learned that lesson the hard way. But she'd learned it well. And she would never forget it again.